You're welcome along to another edition of the Tide 5. Neil Treacy, off the ball's resident rugby nerd, is back with us in studio after a wildly successful Tide 5 last week. We'll get into that in just a moment. To tell you what's coming up today, as you can see in the sidebar, Danny Cipriani's red card is top of the agenda. It's top of the agenda really for everybody, speaking about that Munster against Gloucester game on Saturday. We're also going to talk a little bit about Racing 92's Scrum and how it decimated Ulster. Leinster's poor defence. We're going to take a particular example of one of the tries that Toulouse scored against them in France yesterday and focus in on that. Newcastle Magic. And we're going to focus in on the Falcons and their superb start to the European Champions Cup, beating Toulon last week and then Montpellier this week. And then Schmidt's Ireland squad, the November international squad, announced this Wednesday. Neil Treacy, you're very welcome.
How are you doing, Owen?
So last week we've been accused of espionage. We've been accused of, suggesting that World Rugby may change their scrum laws to counteract what Peter O'Mahony was doing after you told us all about what he was doing.
Well, they already have the laws are already in place.
Well, that is true. That is a very, very good point.
I don't want to labour the point because I think we've gone over it enough. But it was interesting that he actually started out on a lot of the scrums. You could only see a few of them on the TV screen.
Yeah. With
the way the side of the pitch he was on. But on quite a few of them, you could see he started out with that underarm bind. And then just as they set, he actually went back to the traditional one.
Ah, right,
so,
okay.
Maybe he was just trying to trick the opposition there. They might think that he's locked in a little bit too much and try to go down the blind side, and he fools them. He's ready and waiting. But anyway, I think that's all we're ready to say in it this week.
Yeah, exactly. Danny Cipriani, red card. I think, are we at the stage now where we're all in agreement that it should have been a red card?
Yeah, I think it has to be. And we don't want to labour the point or go to town on him because look, it was just a clumsy tackle. It was bad technique, really, and you could see afterwards he knew the mistake he made. He put his hands up. There was no complaints with the ref. He just said, look, sorry, gave Niall Scannell a kind of a customary wave as he went off just to check and see was he alright. And I think most people coming away from it have kind of gone, you know what, it's unfortunate he had to be red carded, but he did.
Yeah.
And we're going to just have a little look here about just why it is. And you hear all this stuff about how the game's gone soft, and that's there. You can just see it's the technique, really.
Yeah.
That he's kind of just standing up way too much. He has the arms down by his side, and I think a lot of people were saying he's actually maybe trying to back out of the tackle a little bit. But if you are in that position, unfortunately, you have to commit to the tackle if you're that close to it. You can't just stand there and wait for it to happen. And you can see there, it's the shoulder connecting with the jaw of Rory Scannell, and it just has to be red, unfortunately, at the moment. And we're in a situation where for the next maybe couple of years, there are going to have to be a lot of tough calls made and a lot of unfortunate red cards given out, just so you can hammer home the message to players and to coaches that, look, you have to change the way and the technique you're going into tackles because player safety is paramount. And one thing I just want to look at, we have another shot here. This is from about 11 minutes into the match. This is a similar one on CJ Stander. Now, he doesn't connect with the head. It's actually just below the shoulders where he catches him. So it is actually a fair tackle. But it's just an idea of the setup from Cipriani is very similar.
Yeah.
He's still standing up in the tackle quite a lot. There's really just a slight bend in the knees. And the arms are kind of down by the side as well.
That's very true.
That's just what you have to kind of train yourself out of getting into the better position, of getting down low and taking the player maybe down at the hips or below the nipple line is what they're trying to introduce.
That's it, because that is such a knife edge of a difference. Like if he stands up a tiny bit taller,
or if Stander goes down a few inches shorter as well.
And similarly with Scannell, if he goes down a little bit lower, he avoids his head. So it will lead to a wild change where, as you say, below the nipple, where you are going for somebody's belly, really, when you're going to tackle, which will be a sea change from that high shoulder, high tackle, which is obviously what they're going for. Cipriani, obviously, there's no malice in what he did in terms of head contact.
Absolutely.
But the kind of way tackling will look, I would imagine, will be quite different. Like the idea that, every tackle you go into, your arms will be free for the offload. That's a good thing, no?
Yeah, for the game itself, the more offloads, the better. I think everyone's in agreement on that. The game will flow a lot better. And you can understand why players are trying to go in a little bit higher to choke tackle, to hold the player up. One player goes a little bit higher, he can protect the ball itself, and someone else can come in low and bring the tackler down to the ground. But I just think in the next couple of years, there are unfortunately going to have to be a lot of cards given out until the message is hammered home.
Short-term pain, but hopefully a bit of long-term gain there. So, big win for Munster, of course, in Thomond on Saturday. It was a defeat for Leinster against Toulouse yesterday away in France. A bit of a surprising result. We want to get into some of the concessions of tries. Oh, sorry, before that. Sorry, we want to go into Racing 92 against Ulster. We want to chat about Racing Scrum.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to wait to talk about a scrum. You know me. But, we talked about running rugby there with offloads and all that, but as someone who just loves their scrums, Racing's scrummaging performance against Ulster on Saturday was just absolutely amazing. Now, it was a brilliant game for a start. The running rugby in that match was incredible. Probably helped by the arena and the pitch. It's a very fast pitch.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff Ulster played in the first half was breathtaking. Some of their attacking play was unbelievable, but they really struggled in the scrum. They conceded three of the tries they conceded to Racing were directly off the first phase of a scrum. One of those, they were marched over and they got over in the corner. Two of them, the scrum kind of collapsed to the ground, but they still first phase in under the post. And as well as that, they conceded a penalty that Finn Russell kicked. So immediately you're looking at that. 24 points of Racing's 44 were directly off scrums. And there's one we're going to look at in particular, which is in the lead up to Teddy Riveren's first try of the game for Racing, which got them back into it. This is the first shot we can see here, and it's... First, we're going to look at the Racing 92 players and why they did so well here. You can see the red lines on them there. Everyone moving in the exact same direction.
Okay.
The heads and hips are in line with one another. Everyone moving in unison in the same direction. And if you contrast that with Ulster with those yellow lines, particularly the one closest to us, which is Andy Warwick, the loose head prop for Ulster. You can see there, Marty Moore over on the far hand side. He's alongside Rory Best. But you can just see, excuse me, that Andy Warwick has just been turned in a little bit.
How does that happen? Is that Warwick's fault, or is it down to what Racing are doing?
No, it's probably what Sadak Gomez-Sa is doing for Racing 92, their tight head. So he's just pushing in a little bit, trying to get in on Rory Best, and that forces Andy Warwick to kind of follow in almost. And I mean, his hips get kicked out. If we can just get it back up on the screen there again, I'll just show you again. So you can see there how his backside is kind of pointing out the way, and there's a much wider gap between his hips and Rory Best's hips than there is between Rory Best and Marty Moore. And you can see even then that causes Ian Henderson in the second row to kind of jut out a little bit. And if we move it on to the next clip here, we're just going to see how that develops. So Racing are starting to move forward, and you can see all of their players again are still pretty much all going in the exact same direction. The red lines are all facing almost parallel to one another, heads and hips in line. And you can see how Ulster's scrum has just been kind of pulled apart. So now you have Andy Warwick, he's still pointing out. You can see there 5, you can just see his backside kind of jutting up in the air. That's Kieran Treadwell. Geordie Murphy on the far side is having to dig in and come across. And you can see that arrow there looping on the far hand side. What they're going to try to do here now is just push up. Sadak Gomez-Sa, the Racing tight head, is going to push up a little bit further than what his loose head is going to do. And that's going to cause the scrum to wheel out and kick towards the touchline, and we'll just get
down the blind side of that.
Yeah, we'll just get the third line here. So basically that's what they've done. They've pushed up on the right hand side, and you can see all the Ulster players that are immediately taken out of the game completely. Their entire back row is nowhere near Antoine Claassen, the Racing number 8, who all he has to do really is just go into all that space, and it's a 2-on-1 with him and Iriberen against Jacob Stockdale, and they're in under the post.
That's brilliant stuff. So what is the remedy for this? So are you looking at this and you're saying, right, Racing have got an exceptionally gifted pack, or are you looking at this and saying this is an exceptionally well coached pack?
It's very well coached, and there isn't really a short-term fix. Like, this is something, and I've no doubt as well, Dan McFarland, he is a brilliant scrum coach. He worked absolute wonders with Connacht in the season where they won the Pro 14, or in the lead up, to when they won the Pro 14. He was there for years, and he really got their pack singing. In particular, their scrum. And I've no doubt maybe in the long term, down the line, he's going to have a pack at Ulster that are going to be a very, very strong scrummaging unit. Unfortunately, at the moment, they're probably just still learning their ways in it. They have some way to go, and they did really struggle at times on Saturday evening. As I said, 24 points pretty much directly coming from the scrums. But I just wanted to highlight it, not so much to show what Ulster were doing wrong, but just to show just how powerful it is, and just how important it can be to have a scrum that can get you points.
Yeah.
And just how easily it can get you points. Because I think people forget that probably a lot.
Yeah, it's true. I think it was quite evident on Saturday night, but also the cohesive nature of a scrum, and just literally, as you point out there.
Yeah, to me that's artwork. That's so much better than Finn Russell chipping over the top and catching onto it and flicking it inside into Teddy Thomas. Like, that's scrum porn right there.
Were you doing that like you did a little S thing on the back of your copybook today? You're putting on the lines on the scrum. Yeah, that is our first incident of scrum porn here on the Tide 5. Good stuff there. There'll be more, we promise more good scrum analysis every single week. We do want to get into Leinster a small bit though, and one of their try concessions. Who's to blame here for their poor defence, Neil?
Yeah, I think it's just a kind of breakdown in communication, really. We're going to look at the... I think it's the second Toulouse try just after Leinster got ahead in the first half. So you can see here what's happening here. I'll just go back here 1 second now. So we have this is Sofiane Guiton's try. So Tolofua, he's just kind of evaded Sean O'Brien. Sean O'Brien's missed the tackle. And what's going to happen here, you can see Joe Tamane out on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
And just inside him then is Gary Ringrose. So once Tolofua has sidestep Sean O'Brien, that means Gary Ringrose has to push in. He has to commit and come in and try and make that tackle. And if we just run it on, we'll see what happens. So Ringrose has come in, he's tried to make that tackle, but the offload has been made. And now all of a sudden Joe Tamane, he's just stayed outside. He just probably, just that split second where he was just a little bit flat-footed, and you can just see just the amount of space that opens up. And granted, the tackles themselves weren't great. Jordan Larmour slipped off a tackle, Sean O'Brien slipped off a tackle. Those sort of things will happen in a game, obviously. But yeah, you can just see how Tamane was just caught on the outside. And there were other tries as well where, it's just about the positioning, it's about the footwork, it's about getting yourself in place, watching what the person inside you is doing as well.
I would wonder in that situation, if Rob Kearney's fit and Larmour's out in that wing, does he make that same error that Joe Tamane does? Is it just a little bit of a lack of a relationship between himself and Gary Ringrose?
It probably is, I'd say. Like, all that comes with time. And you can see just how, like, the amount of detail that's in rugby now. Like the sheer amount of detail that's in all these defensive systems, you do need time to pick it up. And it was just one of those occasions where the inexperience of being involved with the team probably just did cost Tamane on that occasion.
Yeah. Let's talk Newcastle. We were trying to think of some Geordie Shore pun for rugby. Get in touch at Off the Ball or at
Please don't.
Neil_Treacy for your best Geordie Shore rugby puns, because we're going to call it that slot next time, because we do want to talk about these guys. We're probably going to be talking about them a little bit more. Bottom of the Premiership, but flying high in Europe.
Yeah, and this is, I think you don't even want to analyse something like this. You don't want to dig into statistics on this, because this is the beauty of sport. 88 minutes on the clock, 39 phases. Newcastle, first time playing Heineken Champions Cup rugby in God knows how long. And they went away, they beat Toulon last week. Toulon, shadow of what they were.
Yeah.
But Montpellier now, and Dean Richards, their director of rugby, he said last week, like, there's no point going and beating Toulon if we can't win this weekend. And it looked like maybe they weren't going to do it. And then 88 minutes on the clock, 39 phases. Callum Chick gets in under the posts and they win it. Like, you look at their Premiership form the last few seasons, 11th, 8th. They got up to 4th last season. That was a massive achievement for them. An absolutely enormous achievement for them, and they did incredibly well. They've started the Premiership terribly, as we said, bottom, but their European form has been absolutely brilliant. And that pool now is blown wide open.
Yeah.
They're on 8 points, Edinburgh on 6 points just behind them, and then you've Montpellier, I think, on 5, and then Toulon rock bottom of the pool. But I just think something like that is it doesn't matter what sport you follow. It doesn't matter if you like rugby, if you hate rugby. I think you just have to be able to appreciate the emotion and the passion that comes with seeing your team. Well, they're not my team, but for Newcastle fans, or seeing any team winning a game like that, 8 minutes over the 80 minutes, 39 phases. You look back at the Munster game against Northampton, those 40 phases, 41 phases, Ronan O'Gara slotting a drop goal. I was there in Thomond Park that night, and just the atmosphere was just incredible.
Do you know what would be great is if Munster got a home quarter final and they got Newcastle in the home quarter final, all the Geordies in Limerick for a big game in Thomond Park. That'd be great, although it'd probably be the Aviva Stadium with it for a lot of those. No, for the home quarter final it'd be Thomond. For the semi it'd be the Aviva. But for the quarter final, the Geordies versus the Munster natives, that'd be a real battle of who's the most passionate fans. And let's hope Munster would win that one. We do want to talk about the Ireland squad, because it's going to be announced for the November internationals this week. I guess the one question we always have is there going to be any bolters? But it seems that after the year Ireland have had internationally, I think we're all very, very familiar with even the very far outskirts of the Ireland team and who might be involved.
Yeah, I think really you're probably looking at, I think Will Addison is going to be in there. The Ulster Centre has just joined there from during the summer. And, Schmidt is obviously a fan of his. He had him training with the squad down in Australia. just before he'd made his move to Ulster. So I think the general consensus is he's going to be in there. He started the season really well for Ulster as well.
The thing with Addison, obviously, is just the utility player that he is. He is going to be a fantastic squad player for Ireland. I thought he was quite good as well on Saturday night. Yeah,
he was. Ulster's backline at the moment is brilliant as well. You also have Mike Haley from Munster. I think on another day he might get into the squad. He started brilliantly with them, but I think maybe there might just be one or two people ahead of him at the moment. Also as well, Ross Byrne is obviously going to be involved. Technically, he's still uncapped. He did go to Australia, but he didn't get on the pitch. So I think they will probably be the two uncapped players in the squad.
Is there a question about who Ireland's second choice number 10 is? Surely not. Surely Carberry is second choice.
I would say Carberry at the moment. I would like to have Byrne as the third option, though, because I think he just offers something completely different from Carberry. He's a lot more of a traditional out half, But at the same time, I don't want to see Joe Schmidt throwing too many players in, just giving them debuts now for the sake of it, because since the last World Cup he's given 34 players their debuts in just over 3 years, over 3 years now.
And he used to get criticised for not giving players their debut at all.
Exactly, yeah. And of that 34 I was looking at earlier on, there's probably 12 or 13 that are absolute locks to be in the World Cup squad. So he hasn't just thrown around the caps for the sake of it. He's picked players specifically. 34 debuts, probably 2 more to come, as I say, with Addison and Ross Byrne, who hopefully will get on the pitch at some stage in November. But I don't think there'll be any real surprises in the squad. Injury permitting, obviously, there's a couple of question marks. Conor Murray, we think he should be back. Niall Scannell is going for a scan at the moment. He's injured with Munster. If he doesn't get in, you're looking at there's Rob Herring, James Treacy's available, Sean Cronin, Rory Best. So the hooking options are there as well.
Yeah, good stuff. Good potential for more scrum porn and more Ireland jerseys over the course of November. That is the Tight 5, Neil. Thank you very much. At Neil_Treacy, if you've got any questions, suggestions for things you want him to analyse or get stuck into over the coming weeks. That's our lot for this week from the Tight 5. We'll chat to you again next week.